Have you ever noticed how deeply woven alcohol is into our lives? It shows up at weddings, at birthdays, at small celebrations, at massive festivals, even at the end of a regular work week. The glass raised in cheers, the bottle passed around, the casual toast. It all looks so normal. Films, songs, and advertisements go a step further, decorating it as though it is the very symbol of fun, glamour, and social belonging. Yet beneath all of that glitter lies a quieter, harsher truth. What does alcohol actually do once it slips past your lips? Not just the hangover you feel the following morning, but the deeper, slower changes that unfold in your mind, in your stomach, in your entire system. Let's take a close look at what really goes on. The first stop is always the brain, because that is where alcohol's fingerprints are most obvious. As soon as you take a sip, it moves quickly into your bloodstream, and within minutes, it reaches your head. That's when you feel your shoulders drop, your tongue loosen, your laughter rise, or that rush of boldness as though fear itself had been numbed. What is happening here is that alcohol muffles the very region of your brain that controls judgment and restraint, the prefrontal cortex. So the person who normally hesitates before speaking suddenly blurts out a secret. The quiet one becomes unusually loud. The cautious one makes reckless choices. And this isn't just about one wild night. Even smaller, routine amounts chip away at the brain itself. Research involving tens of thousands of people showed that simply drinking around a glass a day across a week could already shrink brain tissue. That shrinkage doesn't always announce itself loudly, but it lingers as slower thought, weaker memory, and a sharper risk of diseases that strip away cognition with age. Then there is the unsettling reality of blackouts. Many have experienced the eerie emptiness of not recalling chunks of the night before. This is not simple forgetfulness. It is the hippocampus, the very hub where memories are formed, being temporarily switched off by alcohol. Imagine trying to write on a chalkboard while someone wipes it clean in real time. That's what happens during those blank hours. If this goes on for years, the damage piles up, and the ability to record new experiences or recall old ones gradually thins away. But the story doesn't end at memory. Many people turn to alcohol because it feels like relief. A drink after a tense day seems to smooth the edges. The irony is that this relief is an illusion. At first, alcohol gives a burst of serotonin, the brain's stabilizing chemical, tricking you into lightness. But when it fades, serotonin crashes, and the very anxiety you were trying to escape returns stronger. Your body's stress engine, called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, also becomes unbalanced. With repeated drinking, your baseline, cortisol, the stress hormone, rises. So even without alcohol in your system, your body hums at a state of tension. The glass that once seemed calming becomes the very reason you feel more unsettled over time. It's like befriending something that offers comfort today, but carves deep unease into your tomorrows. While this drama plays out in your brain, another story is unfolding in your gut. That organ isn't just about breaking down food, it is a command center that communicates with your mind through the gut-brain-liver network. Alcohol wages war on the friendly microbes living there, the bacteria that help digest food, defend against illness, and even regulate mood. Once those allies die off, harmful bacteria seize the territory, leaving behind bloating, irritation, and inflammation. And when the intestinal wall grows weaker, toxins that should remain locked inside seep into the bloodstream, a state sometimes called leaky gut. Those toxins fan the flames of inflammation everywhere, stirring up problems that range from autoimmune struggles to low mood and nervousness. At this point, your liver has no choice but to step in as the body's cleaner. Its job is to transform alcohol into something less harmful. But the intermediate stage is acetaldehyde, a highly toxic compound that attacks cells and fuels the misery of hangovers. If drinking becomes regular, the liver is hammered day after day, leading to swelling, scarring, and the release of inflammatory signals that travel back to the brain. Suddenly, cravings sharpen, fatigue deepens, and mood swings become harder to explain. That single drink meant to dull pain, leaves a trail of ripples that move through your whole system. Skin eruptions, stiff joints, and relentless tiredness often stem from these very pathways, though people rarely connect them back to the glass. Nights filled with restless tossing, mornings heavy with brain fog, or the sudden hunger for sweets and processed snacks are tied to alcohol rewiring the brain to demand quick energy. The cycle feeds itself. Drink, crave, eat poorly, feel worse, and then drink again in search of false relief. Even humor doesn't escape. Jokes about forgetting, about clumsy choices, about liquid courage, all carry the shadow of deeper truths about what is being eroded. The hopeful part is that the body is remarkably forgiving. Remove alcohol, and healing begins, though not instantly. Within a few days of abstaining, sleep already begins to stretch deeper, unbroken by the chemical interruptions alcohol causes. Energy starts to steady, moods level out, digestion improves as gut microbes recover. Weeks later, the liver begins to lighten its load, inflammation ebbs, and thinking grows sharper. Months away from alcohol can even allow the brain itself to rebuild connections, especially in those still young or middle-aged. The damage, while serious, does not have to be permanent. We live in a culture that sells alcohol as though it were a ticket to joy, companionship, or freedom. Yet, no one ever became smarter, stronger, or healthier because of it. Saying no sometimes feels like rebellion, because the crowd so often says yes. But choosing differently is choosing your own future over a moment's illusion. The question is not whether a drink makes you more fun at a party, but whether it leaves you more whole when the party is over. The body's answer is clear every single time. Every sip of alcohol tells a story far larger than the glass in your hand. On the surface, it looks like fun, a way to connect, an escape from monotony. Yet beneath the laughter and music, every drink sets off a chain reaction across your body. When you zoom in on what actually happens, the story is far less glamorous than the images you see in ads or on television. It's not just a single organ that suffers. It's your whole system, whispering warnings that often go unnoticed until they grow too loud to ignore. Take the brain once more. When alcohol keeps arriving, day after day or week after week, the structure itself begins to adapt in troubling ways. Nerve cells rewire to depend on the chemical, which means that without it, you may feel restless, edgy, or downcast. That sense of needing another drink to feel normal is not weakness. It's biology being bent out of shape. Over years, the wear on gray matter becomes obvious. Duller memory, slower reflexes, decisions clouded by fog that used to be sharp. And while many think these changes belong only to heavy drinkers, even light or moderate use carries quiet risks. The brain doesn't measure your intentions, it only responds to what it is given. Meanwhile, mood itself becomes a casualty. Alcohol tampers with serotonin and dopamine, two of the main messengers of well-being. At first they rise, gifting you that artificial lift. But soon after, they collapse, leaving you lower than before. The result is a cycle. Drink to feel better, crash, and crave another drink. What once seemed like a solution to stress ends up intensifying it. It is like trying to extinguish fire with gasoline. The outward appearance of calm masks a nervous system stuck in overdrive, and people begin to wonder why they feel so tense, sad, or anxious, even when they're not drinking. The truth is, the chemical imbalance lingers long after the glass is empty. Shift focus now to the gut. Often ignored, it quietly determines more of your health than you might imagine. The gut is sometimes called the second brain because of the dense network of nerves and microbes that communicate with your central nervous system. Alcohol disrupts this harmony, slaughtering helpful bacteria and giving harmful strains room to thrive. The consequence is swelling, pain, irregular digestion, and constant discomfort. More importantly, a leaky barrier allows toxins to escape into circulation, seeding inflammation throughout your body. That inflammation doesn't just stay in your stomach, it travels to joints, skin, and even the brain, worsening mood and weakening. Resilience, your liver, the silent workhorse, is forced to carry the weight of all this. It breaks alcohol into byproducts that are far from harmless. Acetaldehyde, for example, is not only responsible for throbbing headaches after a night of drinking, but also damages tissues at the cellular level. When the liver is asked to handle this repeatedly, fat begins to accumulate inside it. Over time, that fat stiffens into scar tissue, and scarring eventually becomes disease. The tragedy is that often you don't feel this until the damage is advanced. The organ that worked hardest to keep you alive becomes so battered it can no longer cope. Look at how this plays out in everyday life. The person who drinks regularly may complain of tiredness, never connecting it to their habits. They might notice their face puffy, their stomach bloated, or their skin dull. They may feel inexplicably hungry for sugar or greasy foods, not realizing alcohol has tricked their brain into craving quick feels broken, why they wake up at night, why their mornings start sluggish. Each of these frustrations is a quiet symptom of alcohol's impact. Even that mid-afternoon fog at work, or the inability to focus on a task might not be random. It might be alcohol echoing long after the night is done. And yet the moment you step away from drinking, the body begins to show its resilience. Within hours, blood pressure begins to steady. Within days, energy returns in small but noticeable ways. Weeks later, the gut lining repairs itself, microbes begin to repopulate, and the constant swelling ebbs away. Mood brightens as serotonin finds balance again. Sleep that once felt fractured grows deeper, restoring you in ways you may have forgotten were possible. The brain slowly knits itself back together, nerves forming new connections to replace those dulled by alcohol. Even the liver, if not pushed too far, has an extraordinary ability to regenerate, shedding fat and regaining function. This is not fantasy. It is documented recovery, visible in people who choose to stop. Think too about what it means for your future. By choosing not to pour alcohol into your system, you're not just avoiding hangovers, you're protecting memory, clarity, and emotional steadiness years from now. You're lowering the chance of diseases that steal time and vitality. You're preserving the balance in your gut that shields you from countless ailments. You're giving your skin, your joints, your energy, and your relationships a chance to flourish without the hidden sabotage alcohol brings. It is less about saying no to a drink and more about saying yes to a sharper, healthier, longer life. The social side is perhaps the hardest to confront. The world has taught us that refusing a drink is odd, that to belong you must accept the glass. But the truth is, belonging is not measured by how much poison you can swallow. Real belonging comes from being present, from being clear-minded, from having the strength to care for yourself and those around you. When someone offers you alcohol, the question to ask is not whether you'll disappoint them by refusing, but whether you'll disappoint yourself by saying yes. Culture may normalize it, but your body never does. Every cell, every organ, every pathway within you whispers the same message. Alcohol is not your ally. So pause the next time you're handed a drink. Remember that no one has ever gained intelligence, strength, or health from a bottle. What they've gained are risks that often appear too late. On the other hand, refusing gives you something priceless: freedom from dependence, clarity of mind, balance in mood, strength in body. It means choosing your family, your future, your own happiness over a fleeting rush that fades within minutes. And if that seems like a difficult choice, consider that the body is ready to reward you the moment you decide. Healing doesn't demand perfection, it only requires you to begin.